Calling Bullshit, The Art of Skepticism in a Data-Driven World by Carl T. Bergstrom and Jevin D. West is a sharp, witty, and empowering book that tackles the avalanche of misinformation we encounter daily, particularly in our increasingly data-driven society. The authors, both professors with a background in biology and data science, present a practical guide to developing a skeptical mindset in the face of misleading statistics, twisted visualizations, and data masquerading as truth. With warmth and humor, they invite readers to become more discerning, not more cynical, and argue that calling out nonsense, when done respectfully and with knowledge, is a public service in the digital age. The book opens by grounding readers in the urgent context. We live in an era where data is revered almost like scripture. Politicians, marketers, media, and even scientists often wield statistics and technical jargon to bolster claims, whether those claims are sound or not. Bergstrom and West argue that while data can illuminate, it can just as easily deceive. The core message is that bullshit, defined as information that is intended to mislead or impress rather than convey truth, is not necessarily falsehood. It may contain facts, but it's manipulated or presented in a way that distorts reality. Storytelling plays a central role in this book, not only in the author's own tone but in the way they describe how narratives can be crafted using misleading data. The authors walk readers through the kinds of stories that numbers can be used to tell, often without revealing the messy assumptions, omissions, or contradictions that those numbers rest upon. For example, a simple graph can make a claim look authoritative, even if the axes are manipulated or the sample size is laughably small. The book emphasizes the power of visual rhetoric and how easy it is for someone with a little technical know-how to create convincing but deceptive stories. Bergstrom and West delve into how bullshit often wears the disguise of science. People tend to trust what looks like research, especially if it contains equations, complex language, or impressive-sounding credentials. The authors expose how scientific authority can be faked or misused, reminding readers that peer review doesn't mean perfect and that not all academic papers are created equal. They highlight the replication crisis in fields like psychology and medicine, where many published results have failed to hold up over time. One of the book's most compelling sections focuses on data visualization. Here, the authors break down how charts, graphs, and maps can be subtly manipulated to tell whatever story the creator wants. From cherry-picked data points to distorted axes, the ways to mislead visually are endless. Yet the authors don't discourage data visualization altogether, rather, they equip readers with tools to read visuals critically. This includes asking who made the graph, what data was included or excluded, and whether the scale or design choices could be exaggerating or hiding a trend. The authors also tackle the seductive precision of numbers. A statistic like 78.2% of people prefer X can sound far more authoritative than about 3/4, even when the underlying data doesn't warrant such specificity. The book urges readers to consider whether the precision in statistics is real or just an illusion. This section dives into issues of measurement error, uncertainty, and how confidence intervals are often ignored in public discourse, even when they are crucial for understanding the truth behind a number. Throughout the book, Bergstrom and West provide a kind of mental toolkit for navigating bullshit. This includes learning to ask better questions. Who is making this claim? What's their motivation? How was the data gathered? Could the results be explained by chance? These questions don't require a background in statistics, they require curiosity, humility, and the willingness to dig a little deeper. The authors make it clear that skepticism doesn't mean distrust of all data, but it does mean learning to spot the red flags. Social media and the modern information ecosystem are also major themes. The authors describe how platforms like Facebook and Twitter amplify bullshit by rewarding virality over accuracy. The speed of online sharing often outpaces fact-checking, and once a misleading claim has gained traction, corrections rarely reach the same audience. The book shows how misinformation is not just a matter of individual gullibility, but a systemic issue rooted in how information spreads and how attention is monetized. Bergstrom and West also discuss the role of algorithms and machine learning in perpetuating bullshit. They explain how models can inherit biases from the data they're trained on and how algorithmic decisions, especially when opaque, can produce unjust outcomes while hiding behind the veneer of objectivity. The authors call for greater transparency in the use of algorithms and advocate for ethical standards in data science, highlighting the responsibility of both creators and users of data tools. The tone of the book is both irreverent and deeply respectful of the reader's intelligence. The authors don't talk down, they invite readers into the process of inquiry. There's an underlying optimism that we can get better at distinguishing sense from nonsense, and that education, not cynicism, is the antidote to the current flood of misinformation. They see critical thinking as a democratic necessity, especially in a world where decisions about health, economics, and governance are increasingly driven by data. One of the key messages is that calling bullshit doesn't require being a jerk. The authors emphasize the importance of civility and constructive dialogue. It's not about scoring points or humiliating others, but about encouraging clarity and honesty in public discourse. They model this approach themselves, using humor and self-awareness to avoid dogmatism or arrogance. This is especially powerful given how polarized conversations about truth and misinformation have become. Toward the end of the book, Bergstrom and West reflect on the societal consequences of unchecked bullshit. When bullshit becomes normalized, trust in institutions erodes, expertise becomes suspect, and public decision-making suffers. They argue that skepticism, used wisely, is a form of civic engagement. It protects not only personal understanding but also the integrity of shared knowledge. By teaching readers how to call bullshit effectively, the authors hope to foster a more informed, resilient, and responsible citizenry. Despite its heavy subject matter, the book remains deeply readable and even fun. Bergstrom and West use humor, analogies, and accessible language to turn what could have been a dry academic critique into a page-turning cultural commentary. The anecdotes they share make abstract concepts memorable and show that the ability to detect bullshit is not only a technical skill but a deeply human one. In the end, calling bullshit is a call to arms for intellectual humility and courage. It reminds readers that we don't need to be statisticians to resist manipulation. With curiosity, a bit of training, and the willingness to ask questions, anyone can become a better bullshit detector. The book is a timely, essential guide for navigating a world where data is everywhere, and not all of it is telling the truth.